Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. The closing days of 2024 have been eventful indeed. In the Baltic Sea, an oil tanker has been detained over suspected sabotage for Russia, according to a report by shipping website Lloyd's List. Russia has warned that it would stop supplying gas to Moldova from the 1st of January, and Elon Musk has voiced his support for the right-wing AfD party in a national German Sunday newspaper. Well, to help us join the dots in this complex scenario, we're joined by Benjamin L. Schmitt, Senior Fellow at the University of Pennsylvania and a regular contributor. Welcome back.
Hi, Ashim. Great to be here.
TVP World. Good to have you, Mr. Schmitt. Almost
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. So let's start with this ship that has been detained. It has not only been cutting cables on the floor of the Baltic Sea, disrupting communications between Estonia and Finland, but has also been carrying spy equipment, which has been used to spy on the countries in that area. Is this something that we should have anticipated and avoided, prevented before it actually happened?
I mean, absolutely. You and I don't know how many times I've been on TVP World talking about these incidents over the years, starting with the Svalbard cable cut in north of Norway near the North Pole, the telecommunications cable that was cut in January of 2022. Of course, the Nord Stream 1 and 2 blasts in September of 2022, the Baltic Connector gas pipeline and related telecoms cables between Sweden and Estonia and Finland that were cut in October of 2023. And then, of course, last month, we had in November of 2024, the Yipeng 3 cutting two trans-Baltic telecommunications cables. And then just on Christmas Day, we have this vessel, the Russia-linked Eagle S vessel that cut the S-Link 2 electricity interconnector between Finland and Estonia and a number of other subsea telecommunications cables, including a few that were already cut and repaired, as I understand it, after the Baltic Connector incident last year. But this time it was seized. It was basically stormed from the air by special operators from Finland, descending from military helicopters. They've seized the crew and they have moved the vessel into port, and they will continue that investigation. But as you said, there is reports out from Lloyd's List that show that Russian spy equipment was found on the vessel as well, leading one to believe that it is not only an espionage platform, but also a sabotage platform and also a sanctions busting platform. And there are many vessels out there like this in Russia's Dark Fleet that we now need to be considered suspicious as well.
Right. Well, absolutely. You very clearly laid out the whole sequence of sabotage events that have been carried out in the area. NATO has finally said that they're going to tighten up security in the Baltic. What can they do to prevent these ships from actually coming along and harvesting data and destroying cables? What can NATO do?
Well, look, I mean, international law is pretty clear. You have something under the UN law of the sea called the right of innocent passage. It's the right of a vessel to move through the territorial waters of another country, presuming that it's acting in either neutral or non-military, doing non-military actions in a non-military way. Certainly, having spy equipment on board and doing as was alleged in this report out yesterday. To be monitoring NATO vessels and things in the area, that does not mean that you have innocent passage anymore. And I think that's part of possibly what we'll find out from the Finns of how they were able to actually storm and take this ship into custody. But the other biggest thing that we have to look at is why haven't we used NATO Article 4 consultative mechanisms yet? There have been dozens and dozens and dozens of onshore and offshore attacks, many of which have been attributed to Russia, some of which are under investigation but can still have Russian suspicions around them, and then others that have been shown to have been carried out by non-Russian nationals that were hired by Russian military intelligence, the GRU. Why are we not, at this point, at least using and sending a political signal from NATO of Article 4 and have a consultative mechanism from member states that are affected? This does not have to be an Article 5 response, but definitely an Article 4 should be used in any member state that is still objecting at this point. And I think that there's been some concern that both Washington and Berlin have been pushing against the use of this by member states for the I think misguided concern of escalation management. It's time for Article 4. I've called for this in front of U.S. Congress just a few months ago. This only underscores why we need to be doing that right now.
Right, well, we should be watching that. Moving on now to, well, of course, staying with Russia in one sense, or Russian mischief. Russia has said that it's going to stop supplying gas to Moldova, and it's citing debts, which of course Moldova says are completely baseless claims. They've had this checked by an international auditor who agree with them. What's going on there?
Well, it's exhibit 1,000 in the long and growing list of Russian energy weaponization against the European continent. Remember, back even before Russia's large-scale invasion of Ukraine, one of the key areas of demonstrable Russian energy weaponization in 2021 was when Gazprom came along and said, look, we don't like Chisinau moving towards fulfilling its Euro-Atlantic aspirations and moves towards the EU and things like this. So it threatened to cut off gas if it didn't, if Chisinau did not, basically abandon its Euro-Atlantic aspirations. Thankfully, Moldova didn't buckle under that pressure. But again, that was a time when we saw that happening, and German Chancellor at the time, Angela Merkel, would take no sanctions actions, as she had vowed to the Biden administration at the time to do, to push back on this energy weaponization that was going on. And so, once again, we see this same playbook rolled out again and again. And this is why it is so dangerous to entertain any sort of possible return to quote unquote business as usual with Putin's Kremlin on natural gas, on energy in general, and economics much more broadly than that. They weaponize everything in these relationships. It is time we fully move on from any sort of dependence on Russia in these critical sectors as the transatlantic community.
Right. Well, as you say, it's yet another example of the very slow response by the international community, NATO, the EU, and so on, to this kind of behavior by Russia. Now, staying with energy, of course, Slovakia has decided that as Ukraine is not going to allow Russian gas on its territory, some of which, of course, goes to or went to Slovakia. In exchange, they're going to cut electricity supplies going to Ukraine. Now, Poland has offered to step in. Of course, this statement has been made by a Polish official on conditions of anonymity, so we don't know that much about it. But what is this saying? Is it basically saying that Ukraine has a safety net? That reduces Russia's leverage of energy war, if you like, against countries in the region?
Yes, well, I mean, once again, Poland is showing that it understands the Kremlin threat. It understands Russian energy weaponization. It also understands how to push back on that by helping its neighbors, in this case, supporting Ukraine. If Robert Fico, the prime minister of Slovakia, actually follows through on this cretinous threat to cut off electricity supplies to a country that is fending off Russian active military aggression, the largest invasion or ground conflict in Europe since World War II, for him to come out and say that after having gone to Moscow, did Fico, and standing with Vladimir Putin and talking about this gas contract and basically complaining to the Kremlin that the Ukrainians were going to end, as they rightfully should, this relationship with Putin's Kremlin on energy. This is the Kremlin playbook in action. This is Robert Fico, acting like his neighbor Viktor Orban and siding with the Kremlin against European interests, against Ukrainian interests, and against the national security interests of the entire bloc. But I'll tell you what, this isn't going to work. Slovakia is still a part of the European Union. There are regulations that would not allow it to happen. And I'll tell you, once more, that these are commercial actors that are supplying the electricity to Ukraine, and so they would have to go along with an order that would basically be against their not only their own interests but against EU regulations that they have to follow. So I think this is kind of a bluff and an empty threat. We've also heard from sources today that Fico may be considering cutting off gas supplies to Ukraine at that point. Via reverse flows, that would be detrimental as well. But again, Poland and other countries around Ukraine, I think, will step up and bridge the gap. But really, really pro-Kremlin and anti-European policy moves by Slovakia.
Yeah, it's a bit of a concern, isn't there, that we are seeing more and more of these countries which are within the EU, but not with it. In terms of general trajectory. Moving on now, away from Russia, I'd like to get your take on Elon Musk's comments on the X platform, and also in an opinion piece in a German newspaper, which says that basically AfD is the right way forward for Germany. Only the AfD can save Germany is what he said on X. What's your take on that? What does this tell us about Elon Musk and his attitude towards European politics?
Well, once again, this is showing the for someone who is a physics genius, a technical genius, allegedly. Not having much in terms of genius when it comes to global geopolitics. He's basically, lighting, setting fuel to the fire of the political crisis in Germany right now that's going on. I think that we'll still see the CDU win the elections. But to back the AfD of all parties, it's a pro-Kremlin far-right party, as much as Elon Musk might in his X comments and his editorial that he wrote in the German press yesterday try to claim that it's not. It simply is. This is not a mainstream party, and so these kind of fringe parties in Germany again keep growing, and they keep aligning themselves with Kremlin interests, whether it's the AfD or the Die Linke on the left, the Bundeswagenknecht, this new party on the left. This is this so-called horseshoe theory of fringe politics, where the far left and the far right actually meet and kind of team up. And somehow Elon Musk has decided it's his duty to come in and not only fan the flames of the political crisis in Germany, but also back those that don't back the transatlantic community. They don't back the European Union or NATO. These are fringe figures that are given way too much oxygen in the political landscape at a time of incredible crisis, not only within the transatlantic community and with Russia's war against Ukraine, but globally. Right, we're in an increasingly unstable geopolitical situation here, and for Elon Musk to back the wrong horses all around the world in this case is really concerning, to say the least.
Right. So are you suggesting that perhaps Elon Musk should stay in his lane? He simply doesn't have enough grasp of certainly European and in particular German politics to be able to make a comment like that.
I don't know if he doesn't have enough grasp of it. I think he's a smart guy. I mean, we're talking about someone that's created some of the largest companies in the world and are doing amazing things when it comes to SpaceX and all of its other technology companies. But there's kind of this obstinance that Elon Musk seems to have. He seems to like to create controversy, and this certainly is part and parcel to that sort of approach to international politics. I don't know really what he gains by doing this. I certainly know who does win when he makes statements like that. Vladimir Putin wins, Xi Jinping wins, and all the other authoritarian nations around the world. So I would caution Mr. Musk, for your legacy. For years and years, you were venerated as kind of the next Thomas Edison or Nikola Tesla or someone like this, and are leading the global renaissance in commercial space exploration. I think that he should focus on that. Certainly, he has the right to speak out on any political matter that he wants, but for his own legacy, I mean, these sort of companies and the legacy he has in his commercial business is way more appealing to
Right.
humanitarian and advancements
Understood.
of the world.
Understood. Mr. Benjamin L. Schmitt, thank you so much for sharing your analysis with our audience. Have a good day and a very happy new year. Thank you.
Thanks. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you. And that's all from us in this episode of World Talks.